Now the cancel culture mentality is seeping into things as innocent as children's literature, which should serve as a warning that none of us will ever be woke enough. President Trump even discussed this at CPAC over the weekend, where he called for the GOP to fight back against censorship from these tech giants. With me now to discuss is the founder and CEO of CloutHub, Jeff Brain. Thanks for being here tonight, Jeff.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So what we're seeing right now from the big tech cancel culture mob, you're the president of CloutHub. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, most social media today is all about getting likes and follows and things that don't matter. And I felt there needed to be a social media platform that actually brings people back together and gives them the tools they need to connect, collaborate, and influence issues they care about that impact their lives, their communities, their freedoms, and our country.
And so Dr. Seuss, a great selling, big selling author, and yet the enterprise, Seuss Enterprise, they're trying to say that they were reacting to what the buyers wanted. But of course, what we're seeing right now, we're seeing Dr. Seuss books are trending on Amazon and on other outlets where people are trying to buy the last copies of some of these books that have been canceled before they're fully pulled out of production. So you talked about this a little bit at CPAC, the idea of the cancel culture. Talk to me a little bit more about your speech that we saw over the weekend.
Well, like I said on this main stage of CPAC, big tech has become big brother. If tech giants can censor the president and other individuals that are voices we listen to, they have the power to do anything they want. But there is a solution, and the solution is supporting alternative platforms like CloutHub. We embrace free speech. We promote thought and expression. We don't police it.
And now what we're seeing with these purges on Twitter and Facebook and on other social media platforms where people are seeing their accounts locked, deleted, suspended, even high-profile names. Even Dr. Seuss can't escape it. Are you seeing an increase in growth to your platform of people who are leaving some of these websites either involuntarily or voluntarily and coming to CloutHub?
Absolutely. We've seen a tremendous amount of growth. People are fed up with the censorship. They're fed up with having their privacy invaded and sold to the highest bidder. They're looking for alternatives, and we invite them to come to CloutHub, and there are other alternatives as well. They should move off those platforms. It's the American way to be able to speak our mind. It has never been a controversial issue to have free speech, but we are seeing them. We've taken on General Flynn, Rudy Giuliani, David Webb, many others who have been impacted by the censorship. And quite frankly, we would invite the president and be delighted if he was to join CloutHub.
That would be great. And also, it's so important more now than ever, I would say, because also we saw how fragile a lot of our rights, they're God-given and the government's just here to protect them. And yet we're not seeing too much action on that front. And I think it was really put starkly for many of us earlier this year when we saw Parler. It got kicked off of multiple different app stores such as Apple and the rest. And then we saw them taken off online for about a month or so when Amazon dropped them as well. So has your platform, CloutHub, have you experienced similar discrimination from these big tech giants? And if so, how are you responding?
Well, the important thing to do is to make sure you have alternatives. So if one platform takes you down, you could immediately flip a switch and be back up. And that's part of doing business. And we have alternatives that we have set up so that if any, like I said, one platform were to take us down, then we just flip a switch and we're back up. It's very important. We had actually a situation with IBM where on November 6th, we have channels where people actually have shows, and they took actually all our channels down. Despite a contract we had otherwise. And so we ultimately built our own platform for video hosting. And that's what you have to do. You have to get out in front of it.
And then we saw, before I let you go, we saw the president over the weekend at CPAC. It was great to see him back on stage after leaving the office. It's been way too long. And we saw the president. He wanted Republicans, one of his big messages was we need to nip this in the bud now. We can't keep kicking the can down the road because eventually we won't even be able to talk about the issue because we'll have nowhere to talk. And so President Trump, he was basically saying to punish big tech. He was talking Section 230 and some other measures. What would you like to see?
Well, Section 230 should be kept, but it should be modified so that if a platform can be determined is biased against a particular political view or religious view, then they are held liable. What Section 230 does is says that a platform is not responsible for what our members post as long as we're not deciding what they post or not post. And I think some of the bigger platforms have crossed that line and really are. We're seeing doctors who are talking about potential COVID treatments having their videos removed. So obviously they are deciding what's talked about, and that's a very serious thing, and people should be very concerned about that.
Jeff Brain, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and congrats on making it to the big stage at CPAC.
Thank you for having me.